recording, and we are live with our office hours. It's March 16th. I wanted to make sure, just out of curiosity, was anybody thrown off by daylight savings time? And did all of our communication properly reflect the actual time that office hours is starting? I thought I fixed everything, but I just wanted to make sure. So if you got the wrong email or text message, please let me know, and I'll make sure that that gets fixed. Really appreciate everybody showing up. Today, we're going to talk about quite a few things, actually, but one of the more important things that I'd like to discuss is how to capture email addresses from parents when they visit your site. Realize that statistically, 98% of all website visitors are not ready to engage in any way, meaning they don't want to call or email or fill out a form. They don't want to convert, is another word that we like to use. So we need to find more creative ways of capturing information of those 98% of people so that we can nurture them long term and provide value until they are ready to convert. One of the best ways to do that, I think, is in remarketing. And if you're running Facebook ads or Google ads, you're probably doing a little remarketing already. If you're not familiar with the concept, remarketing is when an advertising network allows you to follow their user around with relevant ads based off of an action they have taken. So if somebody lands on your website, you get to chase them around with ads relevant to the page that they landed on. So remarketing is a really good way, but the most powerful way still, and it's been the most powerful way for the better part of a decade, interestingly, is email marketing. Email still continues to have the highest return on investment and the lowest cost of any digital marketing channel, period. So capturing emails is exceptionally important, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But first, I'll dive into just a little bit of the housekeeping. If you have any questions, please feel free to chat in on Easy Webinar, or feel free to comment on the Facebook Live post, and I'll be fielding questions live as we go. One of the first things I wanted to mention, in case you haven't noticed, the April content is live. And in the April content, you can find that in the resources area. In the April content, we actually have a blog request from one of our members. And Camille, this one was from you. You requested a blog on Montessori math, and we wrote exactly that. And so, A, I just wanted to let you know that that was available, and B, I would love your feedback on the article we wrote. I'm curious as to whether or not this measures up and was up to your standards, but it's a pretty robust article. It's 1,300 words, which is pretty significant as far as blog articles go. So hopefully we hit the mark here. And really appreciate you making that request. Incidentally, that type of thing helps us a lot when it comes to pointing our content muzzle. Oh, and Camille just chatted in saying she hasn't had a chance to read it. No problem at all. It's there for you when you're ready. Okay, so one of the first things I wanted to point out, and something that I wanted to discuss today, is our course on the living plan. So if you go to the courses section, and then you scroll down to the living plan. This is the living plan course. And Matt mentioned this in his email yesterday. We've been getting a lot of questions about where to start. I'm a Montessori school, the head of school or administrator, I'm in charge of admissions or marketing, and I just don't know where to start. And I think one of the things we've done great at Nido Marketing is provide a ton of value. One of the things we've done really poorly is help direct how that value should be consumed. Where do you begin? Where do you end? What's the narrative supposed to be based off of your specific use case? So a place that I think is really good for just about everybody, no matter how sophisticated you are, or even if you're just brand new to digital marketing, a really good place to start is with the living plan. The living plan is actually kind of an invention of ours. And when I say ours, I mean Solutions 8, which is the agency that I help run and manage. And it's a byproduct of 12 years of digital marketing failures and our attempts at trying to figure out how to encapsulate a digital marketing plan that can change, because change always needs to be a part of the plan, but still allows us to manage the process in a way that isn't overwhelming. And really, it's all just an Excel file. It's a Google sheet that lives online. But through this course, we teach you how to use a living plan, how to make a copy of it for yourself, how to build out your campaigns. And what's cool about the living plan, and I'm going to click over to it now, this is the actual living plan. This is what you're going to see. What's cool about the living plan is it really forces you to think about your marketing in a very intentional way. So instead of, doing what I think a lot of us are very guilty of, which is kind of shooting from the hip and, doing things ad hoc, This forces you to really start to think about why you're marketing, who you're marketing to, what the goals are of your marketing, and then approach it in an intentional way that hopefully puts the things that have the most leverage at the forefront of your marketing campaign. And I'm just going to go tab by tab real quick so you get a sense as to what it is. I'm not going to teach you how to use it here on Office Hours. If you have any questions, please feel free to chat them in. But what I would recommend doing is, if you're interested, dive into the living plan. The client information is just pedigree information that we use to make sure that we have all of this good stuff for our clients. The services, though, this is really important, I think, for you to have. Every single school that we have worked with has multiple vendors. And I actually say that with confidence, and it has been ubiquitously true. Even if you don't necessarily consider them vendors, what you'll find is when I say, oh, who manages your website? Then you say, oh, a parent built it for us, and they're still around, and they kind of help us make some changes and updates. Well, okay, there's your website vendor. Who manages your hosting? And then you get to say, oh, let's GoDaddy your one-on-one. Who manages your ads? Who manages your list? Who does your emails? Who does your marketing automation? Who does your social posting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And as we start to ask these questions, you realize that you have this long laundry list of different assets and resources and people and companies. They're doing different things for you. And sometimes it's really tough to keep them all straight. That's number one. Number two, even if you do all have them in your head, and that's fine, when you bring somebody new in, either a new employee or a new vendor, it's kind of difficult to acclimate them to, sort of herding all of the cats. And so what this automatically does is it lets you list everybody in sequence that's performing these services for you. That way, if you ever bring in a new resource, it's going to help you with your marketing. You get to say, oh, and in the living plan, if you're curious about anybody who makes website changes, bam, there they are. There's our website maintenance person. And it doesn't need to end here. You can add as many rows and lines as you possibly want. But this helps keep everybody on the same page. It gives you the opportunity to take a vacation without getting a phone call saying, oh, who does our website hosting again? So this automatically, just taking the time to fill this out, it should take a matter of minutes, and I think it's going to save you some pretty significant time in the long term. And this is the kind of thing that the living plan does. It just helps put everything all in one place. Moving on over to our campaign information. I imagine your school already has a mission statement. I also venture to say, and I hope I don't offend anybody in saying that chances are you probably haven't shared that with everybody that it needs to be shared with. And I can tell you that from experience within our organizations, Solutions 8 and Nido, not all of our employees were, and not just employees, but employees, clients, strategic partners, not everybody's up to speed on our mission statement, which is a fail point on our end, because that should be something that is really kind of our guiding light and what we're all driving towards. And if they don't even know what it is, then they can't help us reach towards it. So making sure that you have your mission statement front and center, I think, is really important. The scope of work outlines the services that you're actually doing. So if you're running Google AdWords, you need to list that somewhere. So if somebody comes in to help, they know. If you have, email marketing running, or you're paying for a directory service or whatever it is, just list everything that you've got going. So, a new resource can just at a glance say, oh, okay, here's all the stuff we're doing. And it also gives them the unique opportunity to saying, oh, and that also means that we're not doing some of these other things, but you just have a really comprehensive list. You should always have 3 goals that you're aiming towards. And the first one is the most important one. SMART is an acronym. You've probably heard this before, and if you've taken any self-improvement courses, but it's specific, measurable, realistic, and time-based. And I'm forgetting what the A is right now, which is so embarrassing. And I'll think about it as soon as we hang up on the office hours. But make sure you have 3 goals listed, and make sure that the first one is the most important one. And that's the one that every single one of your digital marketing initiatives should really be pointing towards. I imagine for most schools, it's going to be increase the number of admissions, which in digital marketing terms really just means increase the number of tours that you're giving, because that's kind of the conduit through which we find admissions, is the number of tours that we're offering for our schools. So have your goals listed here and make sure everybody's aware of what those goals are. Just like your mission statement, if your staff and if your vendors aren't up to speed on what your goals are, then they're not going to help you, reach and achieve those goals. Key performance indicators are this is data, and this is scary, and this, I think, scares a lot of people off, not just Montessorians. I think it scares off most business owners. Your key performance indicators are the things you use to measure your goals. So a key performance indicator really is, how many students do you have enrolled? and how many new students do you enroll every month or quarter or year or season. And that's a key performance indicator. It's really important that you measure your key performance indicators. There's a few, they're platitudes, but I consider them to be, axioms. Things like the path is in the math, or you might have heard that which is measured is managed. If you just start keeping track of the number of inquiries you get, and then the number of tours that those inquiries yield, and then the number of admissions those tours yield, what you'll find, is you start to be able to, you now position yourself to be able to track some of the correlation and causation involved in your marketing. But just keeping track of those numbers, I have found, has a really significant impact on the numbers themselves. And I mean, I'm trying not I'm not saying in a magical sort of way, but what it does is it sort of plants a seed in your mind and just forces you to constantly pay attention um, to the key performance indicators that are most important. And when your attention is on those KPIs, then your action follows, and so you start doing things that help you and everybody is part of your school starts doing things that help um, yield, kind of strike towards those KPIs. Okay, now we're going to move on to the client tab. Again, just briefly, this is all the stuff about you. This is critically important. Imagine hiring a new guide or an assistant or an administrator or a vendor. Let's say you bring somebody in to help manage your marketing. Trying to teach them about who you are, what you do, etc., is difficult. But if you had this little page filled out, you just get to slap it right in front of them and say, "This is who we are. This is our school," kind of in a nutshell. The mission statement, of course, is on the other page, but your story, the story of your school, um, an explanation of your programs, your unique selling proposition. What are your accreditations? Where are you positioned? What kind of history do you bring to the table, etc. Some of your competitors, and this isn't just competitors. This could also be alternatives. For instance, one alternative to Montessori education might be a nanny. Um, it doesn't necessarily have to be the big box daycare. It can be things that parents choose to do in lieu of Montessori. And then, of course, you want to do your SWOT analysis. So what are your strengths as a school? What are the things that you can really rely on knowing that you're good at? What are your weaknesses? What are some of the things that you might potentially want to shore up or improve upon? What are the opportunities you see? Is there an infant program that you might be able to open that can kind of help with your ascension model? Or is there an expansion or extracurricular activities that you can bring to the table that really help with your value propositions? These are things, again, that you should outline and everybody should be aware of. Because once there's a light on them, it gives you the opportunity to start to bring in other people to help you fix them. And then the threats, of course, this isn't anything that we want to think about, but it's important to have outlined. What are the threats to your school, to your admissions, to your positioning? Are there big competitors that are coming in and sort of flooding the airwaves, so to speak? And identifying the threats is the very first step towards helping to mitigate them. This product market fit, I think, is amazing. And this is a really good um, exercise to walk through, especially for anybody who's giving tours and more specifically your director of admissions. People buy for reasons that aren't entirely logical. And that's the point of this product market fit. What you want to do is you want to identify on 4 scales the before and after state of your parents. What do they have before they enroll in your school and after? And before it might just be that they have a managerial problem when it comes to time. Mom needs to get out of the house and she's stuck taking care of the kids, and so the very beginning she just has less time, and afterwards she has more time. The have is the least important of all of the buying signals. People will buy to have, but of the 4 that we have listed here, it's the least important. The second and slightly more important than have is feel. How do they feel? They might feel a little overwhelmed before enrolling in your school. They might feel like they don't know what decision to make, or they might not necessarily know what program's the right program for their school, or for their child. And after, they feel at ease. They feel confident. They feel like a good parent. That's a really big one. Choosing your school gives them the opportunity to feel like they've made the right decision. What's their average day? So interesting that this is more important than feel, but it is. And this comes from Digital Marketer, incidentally. These are kind of psychographic profiles that we use in order to position products and service that we market. But people want their day-to-day lives to be improved, and they will spend significant amount of money to that end. So what's their average day look like before they enroll in your school, and compare that to after? Before I imagine it's hectic and they're herding cats and they're trying to get everything done and there's just not enough time in the day, and maybe they're homeschooling or maybe they're going to a big box daycare that they're just not happy about. They don't feel good about. And when they pick up their son or daughter, maybe there are behavioral issues. Maybe they aren't being able to express themselves the same way, or they're not getting the attention they need that a Montessori education would give them. And so that's their average day beforehand. What's their average day after? And hopefully that picture is cleaned up. It's just 180, what you've been able to do and the way you've been able to impact them on an average day. And the last one, and interestingly the most important one, is their status. Now, we don't like to think that this is the most important buying signal, but it is. This will drive people to buy more than anything else on this list. And it's kind of a sad statement about humanity that this is true, but we can't ignore that fact as marketers. And when we're marketing your school, you need to put on your marketing hat. People want to uh, increase their status. It's where they land on the dominance hierarchy. It's how people view them, what they say about them. And so, as it relates to your school, a Montessori school specifically, I think, can really impact and influence people's status, the way they think about themselves, their status as a parent, their status as a member of their community, um, their financial status. What school your children go to is, it's a lot like the car you drive. It can say something about you and what you can afford and the things you do and the decisions you make. So how does your school influence their status? Now, I'm not asking you to market according to these parameters. I'm just asking you to be aware of them, because this awareness gives you the opportunity to speak to your potential parents the way they want and need to be spoken to, even if they're not cognizant of it. Um, so I think this is a really important sales tool, especially for Montessori schools, who, if you don't mind me saying, not trying to be offensive at all, but maybe aren't necessarily the best salespeople in the whole wide world, because you shouldn't have to be, because you're educators and educators don't want to sell. But sadly, that's kind of the state and nature of the situation that we're in. And so we need to learn this skill. And I think this is one of the best ways to do it, because it's very empathic, this approach. This is how people buy. Let's talk to them according to the way that they buy. To that point, this is your avatar. Every single school's avatar is going to be different. Every single Montessori school's avatar is going to be different. Your avatar is not your target demographic. Those are two entirely different things. The target demographic is a group of people. So, doctors over the age of 40 that live in Baltimore, Maryland. That's a demographic. An avatar is one person. It's your idealized customer, or your ideal parent. So, you might want to do one for mom and one for dad, for instance, or you might have 3 or 4 or 5 avatars. In certain areas of the country, it becomes really common to have ultra specific avatars. Like, there might be the mom that started late as a very specific avatar. She's very driven, very successful professionally, started a little bit late, and you need to speak to her, market to her, and approach her in a different way than the younger, kind of newlywed, fresh out of college mom. Those are two entirely different avatars, and it's important that we understand them as different avatars, and it's important that we kind of profile who they are, what their goals are as it relates to their children, what their values are. The challenges that they experience every single day are going to be very different. The professional mom is trying to figure out how to balance her career against being a good mom. And, the younger mom, the stay-at-home mom, probably has entirely different challenges and fears and pain points. You need to understand all of those things. And this is a really effective exercise to do together. If you have other people, in your school organization that are helping you with the marketing, sit down and have these discussions. It's interesting to me because so many of my clients think that they're all on the same page internally about these questions. I do consulting for organizations, and we'll go in and we have these conversations with them, and I'll challenge them and say, I bet you your sales team doesn't agree on any one of these points. And there's always kind of like a sly smile, and they sort of look at each other and like, oh no, you don't know. And then we rope in the sales people, and there's an epic battle that takes place about who the avatar even is before we get into the goals and challenges and values and pain points. So this is an important conversation to have, and make sure to bring in the people that engage with your parents the most, which I imagine that's going to be your guides. Bring them in and ask them these questions. What challenges do you think mom A faces compared to mom B, or whatever your common denominators are as far as your avatars. This is an important conversation to have. It'll take some time, but it can only yield good fruit, because this knowledge is going to help you craft your messaging, help you talk to parents, help you with your ascension. The way you speak to the mom who started late, um, about ascension, meaning, going into kindergarten, for instance, which I know is where a lot of us in the Montessori community see a little bit of drop off. The way you speak to her is going to be entirely different than the way you speak to the younger stay-at-home mom. Um, so your messaging needs to be crafted, and it needs to be crafted again from an empathic standpoint. Any questions about any of this before I move on? I don't want to just drone on and on. I just think this stuff is important and worth spending some time on. And again, the course dives a whole lot deeper than I'm going to dive here. I just want to give you kind of a precursor. Um, your funnel is going to be kind of difficult to explain, I think, on office hours, and also much better canvassed in the course. So I'm going to leave it alone. But this is just the logical sequence to a sale. The content is the content that allows people to um, begin to learn about what it is that you're providing. The lead magnet tends to be something like your tuition rates. The tripwire is typically the tour. And then your core offer, of course, is the application and admission. And then profit maximizer and ascension are things like extracurricular activities, and of course, getting them to retain and move on in subsequent programs and bring in siblings, etc. This is where the rubber meets the road. What you want to do is track the management of all of your marketing tasks month over month. Now, this looks hard, but what this actually does is it makes what is hard easy. So all of those vendors we talked about you having to manage, you have somebody who's running around doing your website stuff and your Facebook stuff and sending out emails and posting socially, etc. All you're going to do here is you're going to list each one of those tasks in sequence, who owns the task, what it's costing you potentially, when you think it'll be complete, and when you're paying for it. And this is important because you get to see when things are done, who they're done by, how well they're done, whether or not they're done on time, and if they're worth what you're paying. These fields query from the homepage. So you're constantly looking at your goals and your key performance indicators. And if you track this type of stuff month over month, you really get to see who on your vendor list is quote unquote worth it. And I hate to phrase it like that, but the truth is we need to. We need to make sure that we're always paying attention to where our money is going and whether or not it's actually yielding any results. Your rocks and milestones are the things that you want to accomplish. They're not necessarily goals per se, but they're on the way to goals. So, for instance, a good milestone might be, hey, we really want to have 500 people on our email list, which is could be pretty substantial for a small school. Your holding tank are ideas that you want to execute on someday, but you just don't have time now. Don't let those get away from you. We all have so many good ideas, and sometimes it's easy to say, gosh, we just don't have the time or money or the bandwidth right now to do that, and you sort of forget about them. But that doesn't mean it wasn't a good idea. So I like to put the ideas in the holding tank, and you'll see that this goes on in perpetuity. And this gives you the chance to, when spring break comes around, this gives you the chance to sort of pull up your holding tank and say, hey, what's one of the things that we should try to pull off? The content that you're writing should be listed in this content catalog. You want to keep track of everything that you've written, and if possible, keep track of the analytics over time. This can get a little tedious if you don't know how to use analytics. So this part isn't quite as important long term, but I would like to see you tracking, at least the initial engagement of new blogs and articles. But what's nice about having a content repository like this one is anybody that you bring on that's new now has the ability to go through and see everything that you have available to them as an asset. So if you have an admissions director whose parents, who's dealing with a parent who, isn't sure about something or has questions about something, they get to dive into the content repository and say, oh, you know what, we have a blog about that, or we have an infographic about that, or whatever. And then your reporting should all be provided in one place. So if people are providing services for you and they're sending you reports, keep these reports here. You can upload them to Google Drive and just link to them. But the point of the reporting is to keep it all in one place so that you can have access to it long term. Any questions about the living plan before I move on? I think that this is a really valuable tool. I know it's kind of a little tedious, to be frank, but it's so important. And once you fill it out, the nice thing about it is you get to manage all of your marketing from one dashboard in perpetuity. And what's really cool about Google Docs and Google Sheets is you get to share this with whoever you want to share this with. And you can share it on a read-only basis. You can share it and allow people to comment only, view only. So you can really kind of protect it, but rope in additional resources as is necessary. One of the things I wanted to highlight just briefly, we've had quite a few members join. We're just about to, I think we just hit or are close to 300 members, which is really exciting. In the support section of the members area is the members area walkthrough. And this will show you how to do things like update your profile, change your notification settings, use the forum, etc. These are all just micro courses that we created, so you have access to them. So if anybody has any problems or questions around that, this section is available to you anytime you log in. And also make sure that you're subscribed to our blog. The most recent blog and one that's really worth looking at is a Google Tag Manager. It's a little technical, but what's nice about the Google Tag Manager is anytime you want to add code to your site, and you've all probably experienced this where somebody says, oh, we need to add a little snippet of something to your site in order to track or in order to use this tool, or, like live chat, for instance, needs a JavaScript code. Anything like exit intent or pop-ups all need JavaScript codes. Google Analytics, the Facebook Pixel, et cetera, et cetera. Instead of constantly trying to manage that on your website and making your website super messy, this gives you the opportunity to manage it in the Google Tag Manager dashboard, which is way easier. And it also makes it safer in the long term because you get to manage all of your code. You get to see everything that's on your site. If a vendor drops off or disappears or goes away, you get to remove their code with relative ease instead of having to dive into the website and find where that is in a whole mesh of code. So it's a little technical, but it's really worth looking at. If you're a fourth plane member, we actually manage this for you on your behalf. Also, I wanted to mention that we released a blog about 10 days ago, the 16 must-haves for every Montessori school website. And a few of our members went and specifically did number 2. We've been getting a ton of really positive feedback from people who gated their tuition on their website. One of our members in particular, I think she has 4 leads now just from having made this change. And she's not the only one. So quite a few emails and just kind of, yahoos came in all saying that after gating tuition, they're seeing pretty significant improvement just in terms of lead flow. And that's what I wanted to talk about on this call in terms of capturing email. This is, I think, one of the strongest opportunities you have to capture your prospect's email. And what's nice about it is it's a really strong prospect that wants tuition information. This is somebody who's close to the evaluation phase of the buying cycle. So if they're asking for tuition information, that's a really strong buying signal. And that's something that I think it's important for you to start attempting to make contact with them and nurture that relationship long term. And one of the best ways to do that is to capture their email. And we have a blog on exactly how to do this. It explains, why gate your tuition rates. And we also have a course in the members area that shows you how to create lead magnets. And a lead magnet is just something that somebody trades for their email. And so what's cool about this course is it shows you how to turn your tuition document into a lead magnet. When they fill out the form, they immediately get the lead magnet from MailChimp, which is a free tool. And then what's really cool is you get to drop them into an indoctrination and engagement sequence, which is just a string of emails. And we actually have a nurture template here available to you as a resource. So everything that you need is here in the members section, and it's all free. MailChimp is free. The indoctrination and nurture is free to our members. All of that good stuff is available to you, and you can start capturing these emails now, right away. And I promise you will start to see an influx in inquiries. And if you follow up on those inquiries, I would venture to say that you're going to see an influx in tours and admissions. So this is a really simple way to begin driving more tours to your school. And I'd strongly, in a world where people keep saying, hey, where do we start? This is a great place to start. Start with gating your tuition. A gate, by the way, if you're not familiar with the term, just means a form. It's, you're putting a gate, quote unquote, in front of a piece of content. And so when they fill out the form, they open the gate and then they get that content. So again, strongly recommend that. And I also just wanted to let you know that we're planning on releasing another value proposition to our members. We're still working on this, but we're hoping that it's ready to roll out sometime in April. We want, for all of our second plane members and above, we're going to offer this quiz from Lead Quizzes for free. And you can embed this on your site. Second plane members get the lead quiz template that you see here. Third and fourth plane members can actually customize the quiz if they want to. But this is another really good lead magnet that gives people the opportunity to engage with your site. You give them a ton of value. And then at the end of it, you get their email address, which gives you the opportunity to, drop them into a nurture, follow up if you want to, send them your email broadcasts, establish yourself as a thought leader, etc. So what's cool about this quiz is it's asking the question, or excuse me, it's answering the question that they're probably asking themselves. Is Montessori right for your child? And when you start the quiz, the questions are very straightforward. But you can kind of see where we're going here as far as, the type of mission appropriate parents that we're looking for and how we're canvassing them. We're not necessarily disparaging traditional education. We're just, we're kind of giving parents a sense as to where Montessori fits and where it doesn't, because you don't want to aggregate a list of people who aren't going to be mission appropriate. And so as people answer these questions, and I'm just going to do so at random, what this will do is give them an answer. So now I fill out my information. And it says, seems like traditional education may be a better fit. The reason it says that is because A, I answered everything at random, and B, the answers I placed were probably not aligned with what might end up being a mission appropriate parent. But what's cool about it is you're giving a really honest answer immediately, but you're still giving them an option to take a tour if they want to. We don't want to turn anybody away, obviously, but we do want to give them an answer because that's what the kid quiz promises. So just a bug in your ear, this is going to be available to you sometime in April. And if you want to take us up on it, it's really easy to install. We send you just a little snippet of code and you install it on your site. Or if you're using Google Tag Manager, you can plug it right in your Tag Manager. And then lead quizzes will be available on your site. You can use it either as an exit intent, meaning that it pops up when somebody tries to leave your site, or you can just embed it directly onto your site. So it's just available. And that's all I had to talk about. Are there any questions from anyone before I sign off? We're at the 30-minute mark, which I think is a really good timeline. Anything that anybody wants to bring up or anything that you're struggling with? And I'll wait just a moment for the typing to begin and end. That also gave me a chance to take a drink of water. Okay, I'm not getting any questions, so I'm going to assume that we're all good. Can't tell you how much I appreciate your participation. Thank you to everyone who showed up. This has been really helpful and awesome, and I hope that you start to see the value in this. Don't forget, you can always ask questions beforehand too. We have a form that goes out with the office hours notifications. I'll be posting a link to this online in the forum. So if you ever can't make office hours, know that it's available to you. And we try to post the recordings whenever it's feasible. And that's it. If you need anything else, you can chat us. Live chat is always available on the site here in the bottom right-hand corner. And we try to field this almost immediately if possible. So if you ever need anything, please feel free to hit up live chat. Otherwise, I appreciate your time, and I'll be talking to you next Friday.